The Joe Rogan Experience.
Well, it's always weird when you see somebody lean into something and it's not really them and they become what people want of them. You know, and you like a great example in comedy was Kinnison. Kinnison, when he made it, everybody wanted to lay these gigantic lines of coke for him. Apparently, they're like, "Oh, it's him! He's here!"
Right.
Chomp, 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 chomp.
Right.
They just laid some giant line of coke, and he would joke around about it, like I had to do it.
Oof.
And he would do a giant line, and almost have a fucking heart attack.
Right,
and,
I can't not live into the thing because then
yes.
they'll stop trusting it or
Right.
it won't, right.
But you become a caricature. You become this thing. Like Dice Clay is another example. Like Dice Clay used to be one part of his act. His name is Andrew Silverstein.
Right.
So he would do his act, and then the Dice Man was a character that he would do. But people loved it so much when he would do that character that the character became his whole act, and then he became the character. Where you see him in real life, he's wearing like weightlifting gloves and is walking around in a Gold's Gym T-shirt. He became that guy. He's hilarious still, but he's that guy now. Like,
but now he's kind of out the backside of that, when you say.
In what way?
Well, now he's like acting in things.
He does do that and act well.
Yeah.
But he still does the same kind of stand-up.
Really?
Like if you go see him, it's still hilarious, irreverent, just complete, like not of this era.
Well, let me ask you a question, because I think it's interesting. I think in that vein, like if you look at Howard Stern, who I've met only a couple times, but I found him to be like an extremely, extremely thoughtful guy. Like, and I don't mean that. And he just was very intelligent, really smart. I mean, that's again. But he's also like, I don't know, the conversation. We have mutual friends, and I really enjoyed talking to him. Like I thought like, oh, there's nothing tricky about him at all. He's really like down in his shoes. He's interested. He actually asks questions. I mean, there's some people you meet and you're just like, oh my God, they're talking in a mirror. That you're a mirror, and they're just looking at themselves while they speak to you.
They're waiting for you to get done talking so they can talk.
Yeah. But but I think what I think is really interesting is like, so Howard, imagine the pressure, because I grew up in the Baltimore area. He was on DC radio. He was on DC 101. I remember that, the shock of him, literally, and imagine the pull to deliver on what you've built, which was obviously a huge audience that wanted this thing. To me, it's really interesting and impressive that Howard's kind of, and I'm saying it like I know him, I don't know him, but watching it, to me, this idea that he's kind of said, hey, look, I'm going to be honest about where I'm at, and in some measure, I'm going to say there's things I've done I regret. There's ways I've treated certain people in the interest of the show that I'm kind of done with that. I don't really want to be that guy. And in some measure, he's kind of saying to his audience, like, you got to deal with me where I am now.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Now, it's not like there's like a huge risk in that, because his audience is gigantic, right?
Well, it's also he's so successful and so universally praised as being the most important figure in the history of radio. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no one who does like what I do, podcasts, that doesn't owe a gigantic debt of gratitude to Howard Stern. The fact that he was getting fined by the FCC. They were hundreds of thousands of dollars. He kept getting fired from radio stations. He kept doing it the way he did it, and it changed the way people do talk radio.
Honestly, the fact that the fact that we've talked as long as we've talked up to now is a function of him proving that there was a tolerance for long form. Basically, you know what I mean. I mean, it's like people knock on Netflix or whatever.
Yes.
I'm like anything. There's an amazing thing going on in the world right now, which is people are reproving or reconnecting with the fact that for all of what goes on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all this bullshit, like, the truth is people like and have the appetite for, and their brains enjoy longer form conversations and longer form stories more than it was assumed they did. You know what I mean? And like, popular culture feeds us a lot of like fast food and Xanax in like a speedball of you can't handle anything. You don't want anything more than than literally like a little bit of junk food with a little bit of Xanax because you just want to lie on your couch and watch someone else save the world. I know that's all you want, but that is not true. And I think like, you know, you look at things like from Peaky Blinders to Chernobyl to like the Ken Burns Civil War series, like we're going through this thing where people are realizing like, no, that's not actually true. People actually like you, my pal Dax, you know, Shepard, who's got a great radio show. People like to listen to people have actual conversations.
Well, they're also listening, and it's a new way of ingesting entertainment. Like you're getting it in your car, you're getting it in your ears when you're at the gym, when you're on the subway or a bus or a plane, and you're getting these stimulating long-form conversations that maybe people didn't even know they wanted. You know?
Yeah, I agree. And
everybody loves a great conversation with someone. So it's like you get to have that conversation without participating.
Right. And Stern definitely was like, we were talking about before and after, like there was talk radio, but it kind of starts there, I think. I think you started to be like, I can listen to this guy for a long time.
Yeah, he broke through the membrane. Like we were talking about Hendrix entering into a new dimension of sounds. He broke through the membrane of talk radio. And what he's doing now is, now he's a man in his 60s who's extremely wealthy, and he has I'm sure, some regrets, as you were talking about the things that he's done in the past and said in the past. And he's also like, this is who he is now. He's not going to pretend that he's just wants to bring strippers in and have them ride the Sibian every day. And when people get upset that he's changed, I hope you change too, man.
Yeah.
I hope everybody changes.
No, that's what I mean. True. Yeah. It's true. It's not quite Dylan when he's 24 and being anointed, plugging in a guitar. But I do think it's when people sort of go, "Hey, I'm gonna be where I am."
Yes.
And you got to deal with it.
Right.
That's positive, I think.
Well, it's definitely better than leaning into it and being what people want you to be, and then be struggling with that and tortured by that.
I actually think most of people I think that mostly ends up badly.
Yes. Yeah, I think whenever you don't go with whoever you actually are, and whenever you don't acknowledge that whoever you actually are has changed, you know, if you're growing and learning and having these epiphanies and these realizations about yourself and where you fit into your own life and how you've interacted with people in your life, you're not making adjustments, and you're only doing it that way because you think that's what people expect of you. Well, you're a prisoner to your own first incarnation. Yeah. You know, the first thing that people saw, and that was Kinnison. Ow! Right. And he's a kind of a prisoner to that forever.
Yeah.
And acknowledged it.
Yeah,
you know?
it's why anybody who it's not even act 2. Anybody who keeps doing interesting things through phases is even more impressive.